Hey everybody, I'm Hugh Brownstone for 3 Blind Men and an Elephant, and this is not going to be a typical review, even for me. It's going to be relatively short and relatively devoid of specification or comparison. That's because I've just spent a few hours with this guy, the Fuji X-T2, in the real world, and I've fallen for it hard. It is, to my mind, the finest example of what you might call modern retro camera design, or maybe new old school. It's actually less about the look of the camera, though, than the fact that it marries the best characteristics of pre-software driven camera, when knobs and dials were important, with an excellent APS-C sensor, EVF and rear LCD, relatively clean, self-explanatory menus, gorgeous, dedicated crop sensor coverage primes, and a small but lovely number of preset looks intended to emulate actual film stocks from Fuji's storied past. Hold that thought. You may not know that Bryant Park is basically the giant backyard of the renowned 42nd Street Public Library in New York, but were you to visit it, you might well recognize it as the location for the opening scene of one of the greatest movies of all time, Ghostbusters, 1984 original. Today, the library has been returned to its former glory as a cultural touchstone, accessible to all, one of the greatest public institutions in the world. I visited it 2 weeks ago with the X-T2 and a couple of primes in hand. If you only walked by along 5th Avenue, you'd have figuratively and literally seen just one side of it. Had you come in from 6th Avenue, you would have seen something very different. It was a perfect 3 blind men and an elephant setup where, in order to understand the totality of what you were looking at, you not only had to view it from multiple angles, you had to talk to other people to understand once again that one person's subjective truth may not be another's, and neither may be the actual truth. So let's take a look at some images I captured and see how the X-T2 did with just 2 lenses. Freaking brilliant lenses, by the way. The Fujinon 56mm f1.2 and 16mm f1.4.
Today is gonna be the day that they're gonna throw it back to you. By now you should have somehow realized what you gotta do. I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now. Backbeat, the word was on the street that the fire in your heart is out. I'm sure you've heard it all before, but you never really had a doubt. I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now. And all the roads we have to walk are winding, and all the lights that lead us there were blinding. There are many things that I would like to say to you, but I don't know how.
I love this camera and the images that came out of it. I love these 2 lenses. Love them. Love, love, love them. Could I have achieved the same composition and tonality with other cameras? Sure. Other lenses? Probably. Did I mention they're freaking brilliant? But I do know that in any case, it would have taken more work, more frustration, with less joy. I don't care that the X-T2 doesn't have in-body image stabilization, although what little footage I took cleaned up relatively nicely in post. I don't care that it doesn't have a full flip-out screen, or a headphone jack, 10-bit 422, 120 frames per second, a decent recording limit, a full-sized HDMI port, the fastest autofocus, the highest burst rate, or any one of a dozen other things. I'm not bothered that some of its buttons are a little fiddly, I'm not bothered that the lenses are fly-by-wire without hard stops and not optimized for the kind of fast, silent autofocus best suited for video. They actually make a little bit of a stills-only era clunking sound as they step through AF, and occasionally a high-pitched whine when focusing manually. Although, wait a minute, pull the focusing collar, and suddenly we do have hard stops. Oh yeah. I didn't care. I wasn't bothered. Didn't pixel peep. Didn't give a whit about dynamic range or low light ISO metrics, or take the time to compare the X-T2 head-to-head with other cameras, or exhibit any curiosity about its app, which is pretty amazing given that I've been spending a pile of time with outstanding cameras like the Panasonic GH5 and G85, Sony A99 II, 6300, and just this past week the A9, in direct comparisons to one another. For all of these cameras, given their roles in my work, these things matter. But I was spectacularly incurious and unconcerned because the X-T2 is the most direct connect to my brain stills camera I've used since my Canon F1, a 35mm camera so old that it doesn't even use the EOS lens mount. The X-T2 allowed me to concentrate on story, people, emotion, composition. I didn't need to fight the X-T2 or curse my own incompetence to get what I wanted, ever. It was, for me, as instinctive a camera as I've ever shot, and instinct, when it works, is a trip and a half. Another level of being, call it flow, call it being in the zone, call it whatever you want. It is an amazing state. More prosaically, the X-T2 feels like a machine brick, but because it's so small, significantly smaller than the GH5 and barely larger than the A6300, it isn't heavy or tiring. Its EVF and LCD are bright, easy to see and read even in daylight, better than the A6300s. The menu system is one of the most straightforward and self-explanatory I've ever seen, though it's still decades behind smartphones like every other dedicated camera out there today, with the exception of Hasselblad's H6D and X1D. The lenses are silky smooth, beautifully weighted, sharp, small, fast, tasty, have real aperture rings, almost real manual focus with excellent focus peaking and a distance scale inside the viewfinder. I'd put them up against anyone else's glass, and to my eye, shot wide open, their ability to isolate subjects makes a discussion of full frame irrelevant. Hardy ISO, shutter speed, and exposure compensation dials on the top plate allow me to set up the camera without having to first even turn it on, or look through the viewfinder, or start fiddling with menu options. It's brilliant in its simplicity. Reduced to a single sentence, the X-T2 gives me the shortest distance from intent to delivery of any dedicated camera I've used since I was a kid, including a couple of Leicas. It seems to embody a film photographer's mindset rather than an engineer's, or even a photographer's who's been weaned on the digital era. The camera gets out of the way. It eschews almost limitless possibilities, though you can go pretty deep with plenty of custom functions and settings if you really want to, for a much more direct choice. Those film simulations based on legendary emulsions like Provia, Velvia, and Acros. Clearly I had a thing for Acros. And then there were those lovely dials on the top plate, tensioned perfectly with a locking mechanism that you only engage when you actually want to lock it. That the X-T2 happens to record beautiful 4K video, I liked it just as much as the output from my Sony during my day trip to Manhattan, which is saying a lot, is really just a bonus, which doesn't mean much to me because I already have the A6300 and now a GH5. Cameras I think are wonderful and in fact better suited for my professional video work. In the case of the GH5, these are things like unlimited recording time, class-leading IBIS, frame rates, and workflow. In the case of the A6300, these are things like ultimate image quality, low light performance and autofocus, and frame rates too. But neither appeals to the still photographer in me, nor gives me the emotional connection and satisfaction of the X-T2. Bottom line, the Fuji is, along with a couple of their best dedicated crop sensor primes, what I'd want to take with me on personal trips where it's pretty much photos all the way. Then again, if I did take them with me, would I eventually become annoyed by some of its shortcomings? I'm getting hungry. Maybe. Once you've experienced really good in-body image stabilization, it's hard to go back even for stills. Same with a really good touch interface. Maybe secondary controls like the collar switch around the ISO dial would get tiresome, or the limited range of motion of the rear LCD panel. I might get annoyed with the AF motor's noise once my ambition rose to capture footage, and I might miss a headphone jack at that point. Maybe. I'll tell you one thing, I'd never get tired of that 56 1.2 or 16 1.4. Of course, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that this glow could just be the halo or maybe even placebo effect that comes from being alive, showing up, and testing the X-T2 in what is, for me, a unique moment in time in the most photogenic city on Earth, my birthplace, my true home, New York, New York. Yeah. Could be. Or not. If you haven't already done so, I encourage you to check out the X-T2 for yourself and draw your own conclusions. But no surprise at the end, I did not film this with the Fuji because that's not what it's designed for. As for me, well, the only reasons I'm not buying one are because I'm already invested in Sony and Panasonic for now. And there are other better things to do with money when you're already flush, like buying plane tickets, attending concerts, or paying off credit cards. Just saying. Anyway, if you liked what you've seen here, please give a thumbs up, subscribe, join the conversation below, or consider using our affiliate links as a way of supporting our work. And for that I say thank you. For Three Blind Men and an Elephant, I'm Hugh Brownstone. See you next time.